of the Department of Structural Engineering here at UCSD. I'm a professor in the area of geotechnical engineering, which is one of the 4 focus sequences in the department. Before we get started, I'd like to let you know that we're recording this webinar and we're going to be posting this onto our YouTube page. I'm not sure if you've had the chance yet, but we have a new YouTube page where several different faculty have posted videos about different aspects of our undergraduate program, our focus sequences, our facilities, our curriculum, and different opportunities that you can have if you go through our program here in structural engineering. So this morning we have several different faculty, staff, and students in our department, and we're here to tell you about some of the different aspects of the department, answer your questions, and give you any help that you need in making your decision to come here to UCSD. So we're really excited that you've decided to join us here today, and I think we'll have a great session. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Peter Crissell, who is our Vice Chair for Undergraduate Affairs in the department. So thanks.
Good morning. As Joan said, I'm responsible for undergraduate affairs, so we might interact in some way. And I also teach 2 undergraduate courses on computer analysis of structures, which is also my subject area. Next, we have Lely.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Lely Vandenijde, and I'm also faculty in the department. And my background is in civil structures, but I'm a teaching professor, so I teach primarily undergraduate classes. So I will teach many of the courses that you will be taking if you come to UCSD. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. I think next up is Gilberto.
I forgot to unmute. Hi, my name is Gilberto Mosqueda, and I'm a professor in the Department of Structural Engineering. My focus sequence is in civil structures. I teach 2 core junior level courses on structural analysis, 1 and 2. And I conduct research in the area of earthquake engineering, looking at how to better design buildings and other structures against earthquake forces. And next we have Hioni.
Sound, Hioni.
Okay, it's just like everybody else, right? I'm Hyuni Kim. Nice to meet you. I'm a professor in structural engineering. I teach courses related to composite materials and aerospace structures. I teach both at the undergraduate and graduate level, particularly the senior level capstone design class in the 4th year. And my research is focused on the impact and joining of lightweight composite structures. All right. Who's next?
Jessica.
Jessica, okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Toison. I'm one of the research and development engineers in the undergraduate labs. So I work with all the faculty on the hands-on lab courses that you would experience freshman through senior or all 2 or 3 years of your transfer here. And next up is Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Eller. I'm the SE undergraduate advisor. So my role is to help students once they enter UCSD through degree completion with their academic plans, petitions, and any other issues or concerns that come up. And next up is Jeremy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy Adams. I am a 1st year transfer going on to my 2nd year. Transferred from a local community college. I hope to follow civil structures or non-destructive evaluation focus sequence, although I haven't quite made up my mind yet. Thank you and welcome.
Hi, my name is Luis Boss. It's my 1st year as a transfer. I also started with Jeremy last year. I'm following civil focus right now, and I'm from Brazil. I think the next one is Sky.
Hi everyone, my name is Sky. I'm a 4th year student. My focus sequence is civil structures. I'm not a transfer. I've been here all 4 years. But on campus, I'm involved with a construction management student org. So if you have any questions, maybe about construction management on campus, feel free to ask me.
Great. So it looks like we already have one question in the chat that I wanted to address to everybody, because it's a question I get a lot as an undergrad advisor, is if there's a possibility to schedule an appointment to discuss any course equivalency between community college courses and UCSD courses. Yes, definitely email me and we can set up an appointment over phone or Zoom to go over what classes you think might transfer in. On assist.org, you'll only see articulations for the lower division math, chem, and physics classes. And so if you have any classes that you think might be equivalent to your major courses, such as statics, solid mechanics, MATLAB, then you would go through the petition process, and that involves submitting a syllabus from your community college course to me, and then the undergraduate chair and possibly the instructor for that course will review it to see if it meets the same main learning objectives, and if it does, then yeah, we can transfer that in for a major course. And it's really useful to do this ahead of time. I typically won't get the list of incoming transfers until the middle of summer, but I would encourage you to be proactive because your transfer credits won't come in until August. But if you start contacting me with that info, then we can start that process early and we can create a revised academic plan for you. And my email address is on our website. It's jmeller@ucsd.edu.
So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We're ready to answer.
Maybe we can elaborate on the other question about partnership between structural engineering and companies as it relates to, you know, students, if you've done any internships or if any orgs have contacts with companies. I know CMAA has had GBMs represent. Maybe you could talk about that.
I'll jump in really quickly and then some of the students can maybe jump in. So as was answered, we have an industry advisory board for our department, but we also, all faculty in our department have lots of contacts with different industry in the various fields like aerospace and civil structures and geotech. And so they all have a lot of connections to help students get internships. Also, our, like Jennifer mentioned, our student orgs, either CMMA or SCSE, which is the Society of Civil and Structural Engineers, they have they bring in industry to do some guest lectures on a quarterly basis, and they also have a designated career fair for structural engineering department where they bring over 50 companies, usually in January, to recruit our students for internships and starting positions, entry-level jobs.
Yeah, I think I just want to add real quick that the Jacob School, which is all the College of Engineering, has some really nice programs as well to help foster internships between students and companies, and even programs where they'll send a team of students to companies to do internships. And those are some amazing sounding opportunities to get involved with, and you know, resources available for you. So sorry, go ahead, Sky.
Oh yeah, no worries. I just want to add on to what Professor V said. So besides the career fairs and the GBMs, the lecture, the speaker events that we have, we also have project teams. So those project teams are really hands-on, and those project teams usually work with industry sponsors. So if you're maybe on a leadership position with those project teams, you'll be able to have first-hand contact with those companies and maybe not even leadership positions, like for some of the project teams, like the CMA project teams, those would just, everyone would have the opportunity to talk to industry sponsors and build that relationship. Yeah.
Maybe I could mention a little bit. We're also looking into some longer term internship opportunities at the Jacob School level, which consist of both a semester and the summer. These usually happen in the junior or even senior year. The nice thing about these internship opportunities is they're all organized, and companies will post things specific to structural engineering, and those are really good ways to have a longer term experience where you interact with the companies. So this is a new program that the Jacob School has started this last year, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities going in forward in the future.
Just adding on the student side, last year I had probably the same question when I was in this meeting, but there are so many good opportunities at UCSD. I probably think my first one was in a info meeting that the companies have, and this is a good way to start talking to people. And at that time I felt that I was not even prepared, and I really recommend all the new students to have a resume done in the first quarter and participate in this, because it's actually pretty easy to find jobs for summer internships.
One of the things that we've tried to do in our curriculum too is that you have some, especially like in your first year, you have a computer design graphics course, which Professor Van de Ende teaches, and gives you some sort of basic background that you can look for these summer jobs with some engineering skills involved available. And then, if you go through your second year, you'll have some basic structural analysis coursework under your belt as well. And again, that sort of advances the level of what type of internship job you can get. And between your third and fourth year, you're really quite advanced student in terms of the coursework and things that you've had preparation wise to apply for different jobs.
I could just add on to what Professor Kim just said. One of my favorite things about UCSD was how they design like the education plan. Going into UCSD, I wasn't really confident, like, could I get an internship out of my first year? But having taken SolidWorks and AutoCAD and MATLAB, I feel like I have some like engineering tools that I can actually apply to an internship. So.
Great. We had a question about there's a lot in the question about the BSMS, and then keeping a balance between pursuing the BSMS program and student life, internship, course load. A couple notes about the BSMS. That is a great opportunity. In general, for incoming transfer students, there's a couple questions I have for students when they come in is, do they already have an idea of which focus sequence they want to complete? And are they trying to graduate in 2 years or 3? If you're trying to graduate in 2 years, it will be difficult to also fit in time for the BSMS program. If you're coming in with transfer credits, that might be more feasible, or, major transfer credits. If you're doing the 3-year plan, then you definitely do have room for that. The BSMS program requires a 3.5, and if you spread your classes out over 3 years, there is definitely more availability to kind of, take 3 classes some quarters versus 4. So I think that does help you maintain your grades and also have that school life balance. And then maybe students can talk about achieving that balance between their course load and their extracurricular and internships and their grades.
I'd just like to add too, related to the MSBS program, is that if you're able to slip in 1 or maybe 2 graduate courses during your undergraduate time, and you take the grad course not to count for your bachelor's degree, but for your MS degree, it'll help shorten your MS time as well. So that's sort of this course load balance. But I'll turn over to the students to share about work-life balance.
I can start
Yeah.
sharing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, Jeremy.
No, Sky, you can go ahead.
Okay. So I'm actually currently doing the MSBS program. I started taking grad classes in my 4th year. So I realized that I actually have enough time to squeeze in the grad classes. So, and also a little bit background about me is I also transferred into the major. I didn't start taking SE classes in the 1st year. So maybe I kind of started also doing the 3-year plan. And from that, I found out that I was able to squeeze in time for my grad classes for the MSBS program. So I would say definitely it's doable. In terms of internship and work-life balance, so I've done on-campus jobs in my 1st year, and then I've started interning at facilities management. That was like more related to engineering. So I was able to do that like 20 hours per week and studying for all my engineering classes. So I think it's good. It's doable to have both the practical experience and the class experience at the same time. I would say I did well in my classes. So I definitely believe that you could do it, but it's all just up to you in terms of time management and what you actually want to take out of your classes and out of your internships. But if you can't do really on like school time internships, you could also do the summer internships, and those are highly valuable too. I think a lot of my friends did only summer internships, and those would like build up your relationship with industry professionals and get your exposure to the practical side just as well as doing part-time.
And kind of building off of what Sky was saying, my goal is to get into the MSBS program. And I found that one of the biggest challenges for me is, in fact, time management, because at UCSD, the curriculum is pretty rigorous. And as a future engineer, I want to make sure that I get the most of the material that I possibly can. So what I do is I just come up with a plan. Like these are through my ed plan, I'm taking approximately like 3 courses every quarter because I am doing the 3-year program. This quarter is 4 courses for some reason. But beyond that, I kind of spread out my courses so I can follow the ed plan. But within each quarter, I set up like, okay, these are the classes that I'm taking. This is the time that I have to allocate to each class. That way I'm not compromising the quality of education that I'm getting from it. At the same time, I'm not really putting at risk my GPA, which is a requirement to get into the MSBS program. And also I have a full-time job on the side, so I'm doing that too. So it's definitely possible.
So we had a question about how many students are there in SE courses. There's definitely a range. We do have a couple classes that are bigger, but not a lot. And we have quite a few classes that have labs. And so those, you might have a larger lecture section, but then the lab sections are smaller. Maybe Jessica can talk about some of the experiences students get in the labs.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, that's one of my favorite aspects of the labs is it's a more intimate setting. So you can have classes. I think if I was to throw a number out there, maybe 100 students is what maybe an average SE class is. But in the labs, they're more like 20 or 30, and there's multiple sections. And you get these experiences, these hands-on experiences every year of your career here, whether you're here for 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. There's a whole spread of introductory lab courses and then advanced courses for the capstones or like the senior level classes. So a few of our notable lab classes that everybody takes within their first year here, whether you're a freshman or a transfer student, is our SE1 introductory labs, which will give you a hands-on lab about each of our focus sequences. So you'll do a civil lab, you'll do an aero, you'll do a geotech lab, and then you'll also learn a little bit about structural health monitoring as well. And then our next lab class that you take, still in the first year, is SE3, which is where you learn, you know, a lot of computer graphical skills. And I think Jeremy mentioned this earlier, that will help you maybe with internships and things like that, because you're learning how to use like AutoCAD and SolidWorks and all those things on the computer, in addition to having this design hands-on experience, which will teach you how to do the 3D printers or a laser cutter, and all these like tools and stuff that you can build your like technical, you know, hands-on experience here. So those are just some of the notable things that you will do in our major.
This might be a good opportunity for maybe Peter or John to elaborate on the focus sequences a little bit, since Jessica mentioned them in the SE1 course, that we touch on them. Would either of you want to mention them?
Peter, do you want to?
Okay. So we have decided to give opportunities to students to specialize in something that is of real interest to them. A number of our students take one of the 4 sequences, which is the civil engineering. That is a good number of our students. And that focus sequence specializes in civil engineering structures, concrete, steel. Then our next focus sequence is for aerospace structure interested students. A lot of laminates, composites work, flying stuff. Then our next sequence is in geotechnical engineering, of obvious interest to California residents with seismic activity and earthquakes. And then the up and coming area of structural health monitoring, where we're really interested in instrumenting structures and tracking how they behave in time, and possibly predicting how they will perform in the future. So 4 focus sequences: civil engineering, aerospace engineering, geotechnical engineering, and structural health monitoring. John, you want to add something?
Sure, yeah. So in addition to those 4 focus sequences, which you really start taking courses in those in, you know, the junior and senior level years, we have 2 other kind of common core sets of courses that almost all of the students in the department take. The first is a mechanics sequence. So we think that this mechanics sequence is so critical that all students need to take this. So you learn about statics, how everything is going to behave, and how structural elements can transmit stresses, and how everything can be in balance. We look at dynamics, how things are going to move, and vibrations, how things are going to, the different mode shapes that the structures could take when things like earthquakes or flutter in airplanes affect the structure. And we also have a very strong computational mechanics set of courses, because we want students to be able to know the mechanics, and then also to be able to put them into some sort of computer code, computer software, because that's one of the main ways that we analyze structures in practice. So the first, your sophomore year, when you're going through a lot of the structural engineering courses, a lot of those are focused on just getting the basics of like the language and the tools that you're going to be using. When you go into the focus sequence courses, when you're really going to start to focus on design and how to go more and more complex. And then at the master's level, it's impossible, even though we have many courses in our undergraduate program, it's impossible to cover everything in your undergraduate. We do give a good basis so that you can go and work and practice right after you graduate. But we go into a lot more depth on some of the specific design and analyses in the graduate program, in the master's courses. So I think our department really has the full suite of information that you would want to be a structural engineer. We didn't really discuss what it means to be a structural engineer and like what the name of the department means yet. Maybe does somebody else want to comment on that, or I could if you'd like. Hyani, you've had a very nice explanation in the past.
I meet myself first. So yeah, sure, I could do that. You know, the name of the department actually could get confusing to people, and I think a lot of us will say I'm from structural engineering, and people will either assume something or they'll say, what is that? And so, you know, we at UC San Diego take a very holistic approach in the definition of a structure. As you know, I personally like this definition of just an assemblage of materials and geometry to achieve some function. And that's an extremely broad definition, but it does encapsulate the aspects of what our faculty do in research, especially. If you look at the research profiles of our faculty, we have people certainly building things like in our backgrounds, buildings and bridges and major important infrastructure, and people looking at you know, high performance, lightweight structures like aircraft or spacecraft. But we also have faculty who are looking at you know, how blood cells deform as they pass through capillaries, and biological structures, and how do we model and represent biological tissues for surgery or for other types of aspects. And then, you know, if you think about, you know, everyone has, you know, has one of these, right? Oh, it's disappearing. Cell phone, right? A cell phone carries around, and you know, what limits the performance of a computer, right? It's actually mechanical failure, right? You can't keep pushing the CPU hard and hard. It's going to overheat and fail. Right? These are structural failures. And so, you know, structural engineering really embodies a whole broad category of how do structures behave, and that broad holistic definition that we ascribe to. And I would say that, as we described, there's 4 focus sequences by which you would narrow and concentrate on, but this core set of classes that take is founded in what Professor McCartney was just describing as the mechanics, the fundamental behavior of structures. And we really feel it's very important that students in our program who go through that core can actually go into different disciplines. And maybe you graduate with a civil focus sequence, but then you decide, oh, I want to work in the biotechnology field, the aerospace structures field. And we've seen that. And our students are very well prepared because our education is very fundamental, and you really learn the fundamental basics of mechanics and how structures behave, and the application of how that's applied will be specific and focused, but you really get a fundamental basic ground level foundation. And you know, sometimes people are critical of that and want more hands-on applied applications focused, and specific training on how to use specific software, but that's not really our focus. Hopefully that wasn't too long. Sorry about that.
While we're still kind of talking about focus sequences, I wanted to answer the question about at what point do you need to pick which focus sequence you want to do. As transfer students, again, that would kind of depend on if you're trying to graduate in 2 years versus 3. On our website, we have academic plans for each of the focus sequences for transfer students. And a lot of them, if it's 3 years, you have until your second year at UCSD to decide that. SE1, which you'll take your very first quarter, will help you decide that because you'll have labs and lectures on the different focus sequences. So I'd say the soonest would be your second winter quarter or winter quarter of your second year, depending on when you're trying to graduate.
I like to look at it as doing the backward schedule. When do you plan to graduate? Do you plan to graduate June of 2022? Then you back up, all right, before you enter the year before that June, you need to choose a focus sequence, because that year before you graduate, you need to start taking focus sequence classes. And then the final year that you graduate, you'll also be taking focus sequence classes and your capstone classes and things like that. So this, 2 years, 3 years, it gets very confusing very fast, especially for students coming in as transfers with everyone has a unique preparation. But even students coming in as traditional 4-year students, there's a whole lot of variance as well.
Just adding what Jennifer say, I feel definitely students should take IC1 before they take this decision, because IC1 pretty much tells you like what you're gonna do in each area. So I really recommend students to take IC1 before, if they have any doubt in which area they want to focus on. That will help you a lot.
There was also a question about the FE exam and taking that. So the FE exam, which is also known as like the engineering training exam, has actually multiple categories that you can take. So most of our students, we encourage them to take the general exam because that relates to a lot of the things that they'll learn in our curriculum. There are some students who have taken the civil one, but they have to study outside of our curriculum because we don't teach things like surveying or hydraulics, things like that. So we recommend the civil or the general one. Also, there's 2 different opportunities you could take it. You could take it in fall or you could take it in spring. I always encourage students to take it in the spring because you've been learning about your classes all like the last 2 quarters, and so it's a lot easier for you to take the exam. And we happen to have a pretty high pass rate, which I think Professor Crystal commented on the Q&A as well.
Great. Well, we are actually a few minutes over time, and I know a lot of you have other sessions to hop in on at 11 a.m. So are there any other questions before we close up?
I just want to remind everyone that, all of us who are on this panel, you can find our emails on the website. So we're all willing to answer any questions you might have. So feel free to send emails if you have additional questions that weren't answered today.
Yeah, I'll just comment also that it's definitely, as I mentioned before, every one of you has a unique background with different coursework, different preparations.
Great. Well, yeah, so I'd like to also thank all of you for joining us today. And like Professor Van den Eyden said, we're very happy to talk with you about any specific issues, and we'd really like to see you here in the fall. Okay. All right, so enjoy the rest of your Transfer Triton Day, and yeah, please reach out if you'd like to answer more questions.
Great.
Thanks,
everyone.